has always been a certain level of indebtedness, legacy debt. There should have been a structural arrangement within the sector to solve and put permanent stop to the indebtedness accruing. That hasn't happened because you remember this government tried PDS, which is the private sector participation, and that didn't happen. And most of us who have been in the civil society space have always felt that the only way to basically help solve this problem permanently is to basically bring the private sector participation into the distribution end. That hasn't happened. The indebtedness keep accruing. Now, government has always owed IPP. There's never been a day when government has fully paid for the cost. And when I say government, it's everybody. Look, the power that is generated is not consumed by only the political. When we say government, people tend to make it look like it's Nanabo, right? Power generated is consumed by everybody, you and I, right? Now, the commercial losses, which is illegal connection, non-payment of debt, and all those things, there should have been policies to rectify that. There isn't. There hasn't been. So me and you, the consuming public, do not pay for the full electricity that is generated. And that has been that every day there is accumulation of debt. How do you deal with it? That hasn't been dealt with. And like I said, the debt's still there. Sonia Sogli is owed money. All IPPs have always been owed money. Sonia Sogli decided that because government owes me money, I have a power purchase agreement with government, but at this stage, I can no longer operate while government owes me money, pay me $60 million, or I can no longer operate. They went against the agreement they have with government, which is the power purchase agreement, and shut down. Nobody asked them to shut down. They shut down on their own will, pending when government pays them. Now, obviously, if you've heard the management of PCG over the weekend, he said that, look, the power being generated is to go towards those that are generating it. So they also cease giving money to Sonia Sogli because they cannot be given when other people generate. They give the money to the person who is not generating. So that issue of Sonia Sogli is to be dealt with by the Ministry of Finance. Until it's dealt with, as far back as 8th October, they shut their plant. But since they have been shut down since the 8th of October, the lights are on. I've seen a lot of commentary on news, on radio and TV, trying to make it look like there is a virtual outages in the country. There isn't. Everybody's light is on. Now, if your light is off, it might be a localized problem, so you call the EPG hotline. But in terms of other IPPs threatening, I've not heard any other IPP in the news threatening light outages except Eleclem, who is the chamber for IPPs, coming out to talk about the Sonia Sogli indebted. Now, Eleclem saying that other IPPs are also threatening suits. Eleclem doesn't speak for these individual IPPs, and he has not been able to name these individual IPPs. So for me, as far as I'm concerned, I have a very good communication channel with a lot of the private IPPs, and nobody is going to go in the line of Asogli because they realize that making $1 billion over multi-million-dollar investment in Ghana and shutting down and sitting there and not working, it doesn't solve your problem. Okay, so I think everybody who is producing today is going to learn from that thing where Asogli went ahead and shut down, and they are sitting there, no revenue, and they have accruing expenses day in and day out.
You, in reference to the IPPs, I mean, for the longest time, we know that for the association, Eliknima Petogbo has been speaking for them. So
no, he doesn't speak. He doesn't speak for them. I can put it on record. He doesn't speak for them.
When did it start?
Well, because every time he's come out to say something, and we have back channeled with the individual IPPs, they don't agree with the things he comes out to say. And I know that for a fact because he has come out to threaten. Look, he said that by Friday, 3 IPPs were going to shut down, right? Today is Monday. Who are shut down? Nobody.
But isn't there backroom engagement with the IPPs?
There is no backroom engagement. What backroom engagement? Everybody is busy doing their work. What backroom? The only thing that's happening is government is talking to Asogli, try to find ways. Because look, let's not make it look like somebody owe you and he can go to hell. It's not. Government doesn't work like that, right? So there is a effort to pay the indebtedness to Asogli. So there is negotiation with Asogli to find a middle ground for them to start working, because government admits that it's unfair for them to have a huge investment in the country because it sends bad signal to other investors. It's bad enough not paying them when you owe them. It's bad enough for them to shut down and you ignoring them. So yes, there is a negotiation between the Ministry of Finance, the Minister, Minanta, and Asogli to find middle grounds. But any other IPPs that nobody has threatened one, and nobody is talking to anybody, because that's why I keep saying that Elliot Clem's conversation, anytime he's come in the media to threaten and say things that it's never been the case.
Now, one of the major criticisms that has come up in the wake of the inconsistencies when it comes to power supply is that you have your opponents, for example, the flag bearer of the NDC, John Mahama. I just, before you came online, I also did speak to former Power Minister Dr. Kwadwo, and the sentiments are the same, that those in the current administration are not giving the sector the maximum attention it deserves, because it intends to pass on the problem to whichever administration that will take over from them, and the consequences are going to be dire. Is that what is happening? Are you tiptoeing around the problem, seeking to pass it on to another government?
Well, my dear, we all say that government is continuous. I don't think anybody will intentionally tiptoe around the problem and pass it on. There is maximum effort to resolve this problem. What I believe, and if you read the Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia manifesto, which I chair, is that there is all hands on deck approach to restructure the sector. That hasn't happened. I think that every government led by its leader has its own approach. Nanado had an approach. He came in and inherited the private sector participation through the Millennium PDS. The way it went, maybe, I don't know. He had to speak for himself, put a bad taste in his mouth, and he decided that, look, he's going to find other ways to restructure and work in the system that he found himself, which is leaving ECG majority owned by government. Poku, who led the manifesto of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, feels strongly that ECG should definitely not be left the way it is. We should have at least for nothing at all, the last mile, which is the retail market, should be given to private sector. And that is something that should be aggressively pursued. And Dr. Bawumia buys into that. That is why it's part of his manifesto. So it's not that anybody is trying to pass on the problem, just that what is needed to permanently resolve the problem needs time and careful planning, and obviously that has not happened now. Nobody is tiptoeing the problem to pass it on. What this government has done is, amidst all the difficulties that the energy sector has, it has managed this sector better than the NDC, and everybody knows that, right? The 8 years of NDC 2012, 2009 to 2016. 2017 to 2024, everybody that has lived in Ghana can tell which 8 years the light has been on. Okay? This government has managed the problem better, albeit the problem that exists in the sector. But that's what I said. I mean, you can never have a perfect system. Is there a lot to be done? Yes, there is a lot to be done. But I disagree with anybody saying that somebody is tiptoeing around the problem to pass it on. Government is continuous. If you're not ready to inherit the problem, then do not come into government.
And speaking of which, you indicate in your communication just a while ago, you acknowledge that there is a problem, but then again, you earlier did say that there isn't so much of a problem, and what is happening at the moment would be localized faults. What is the situation at the moment when it comes to power supply?
Yes, situation. My dear, you see, people sitting on radio and TV pushing. Look, you know the irony of what happened over this weekend? There are multiple TV shows over this weekend, people trying to push the idea of power outages. Everybody who was watching that program, light was on because they can watch the program, right? If your light is not on, you can't watch those programs. But across the country, everybody's lights were on this weekend. The issue is that the fact that people sit on radio and TV and talk about power outages doesn't make it that there's power outages. When there was power outages between 2012 and 2016, it wasn't people sitting on radio to talk about it. We Ghanaians experienced it. Okay, so your light is off. Your light is off. You don't need somebody to come and tell you your light is off, because if somebody is sitting on radio telling you that there's power outages, then the question asks is what power outages? Because my light is on. So where in the country are the power outages? So the question is that we are saying that there is always going to be a localized problem. The localized problem you call ECG4. Nobody in Ghana can assure that there's never going to be a time in Ghana where some part of the country doesn't have light outages. Because of the vast development that's happening in the country, transformers are being overloaded. Because of the vast development and people basically constructing without permits and not proper documentation being gathered by the town and country planning, we are not planning effectively to basically expand these transformers and basically expand our infrastructure. So we get to a point where people are not able to basically have low current and all those things. It happens. Nobody's going to deny that we are going to have a country that doesn't happen. But the most important thing is that as we speak, in terms of the national problem, are there any load management? No, there isn't. Okay, there's enough force security, there's enough power security at installed capacity that people keep talking about, Amandi not working. Yes. It's funny, I was watching one program this Saturday. The ECG MD was on the program trying to explain to the host of the problem, the problem that exists and what doesn't exist. And the host was arguing with the ECG MD that the data that the host has is different from what the MD is saying. Why call the MD to clarify something if you're going to argue with him? People want to push a narrative, okay? That narrative doesn't become so just because everybody says it. Okay. What the narrative, where it becomes possible is when people visibly goes through the country and there is darkness, or they hear all the nika and the what I call nika will be the what do you call it, the generators, okay, basically buzzing around the country. We don't have that in Ghana today.
I mean, you just made reference to the ECG MD, and in that same conversation, you say that, for instance, where the outages, they could be localized faults. But in that interview, he did also admit that there are shortfalls. And in fact, the shortfalls, they are inconsistent. It's the reason they cannot provide a timetable. But there are shortfalls. So these shortfalls and localized faults, they are not the same thing, are they?
Yeah, if you say they are shortfalls, you have to be specific. When you say shortfalls, what is shortfall?
No, I'm referencing what he said. He said the shortfalls in terms of in terms of the supply they get, it is inconsistent. Reason they cannot give a timetable.
Well, so let me give you an example. I'll give a typical example. I have always said in this country that the minute we moved away from one generation source, which was mainly Akosombo, into multiple thermal sources, which is now over 9 to 10 IPPs, which are giving us thermal plants, you have to have gas moving through pipeline and valves to all across the country, right? Now, you have instances where there are valve shutdowns. Okay, now car power. A lot of people are citing that car power is producing at a much reduced rate. Yes, car power now is doing 54 megawatts instead of the full 400 and something megawatts they're supposed to do. Why is that? Because when you try to put the pressure valve which goes to car power is faulty. When you tend to put more gas through the car power, that valve, it shuts down the whole plant. When that shuts down, the western, the Takoradi enclave, okay, has to basically go down. There isn't enough generation. So then Gridco, who manages the side of the transmission and the generation, has to inform ECG that, look, we have a problem. We are restarting the valves because there's a trip here, there's a trip there. And ECG has to manage that load within that particular time, maybe within 30 minutes, 1 hour. So that instance is okay. They are always faults. Nobody, like I keep telling you, we are running mechanical, electrical, and so many systems in one country.
All right.
So there is a problem. So in that instance, yes, he will say that there are shortfalls at a point, but that doesn't culminate into what agenda people, the agenda people want to push.
Duly acknowledged. Duly acknowledged, Mr. Poku. Thank you so much for speaking to us. We're grateful for your time.
Thank you very much.
You heard us speak to Kwadwo Poku. He is the manifesto spokesperson for the 2024 manifesto of the Bawumia campaign. This is still the Morning Star here on Star 103.5 FM. I'll go for a short break. When I return, there is more to talk about. It's the Morning Star here on Star 103.5 FM.